talk to us about Arlene Newman and Bob Siegelman and the big breaks that people can have when they move to the United States and how they influence his future.
My father was very inspired in 1971, 4 years before I was born, when Jack Siegelman, their parents, the father of Arlene and Bob, came back to America. Jack left the Soviet Union. Jack left the Soviet Union in the 20s, I believe, when you could still kind of get out right after the revolution. And Jack was my dad's grandmother's brother. And he was the only one that went to America. And he had the brains of the family in a lot of ways. He saw it. He saw what was coming. Jack is a much older man, came back to Russia in 71. And my dad was really taken aback by a statement when he just looked at my dad, who was 16 or so at the time, 18 at the time, and just said, "You need to get to America." And it stuck for my father. There was an incident that happened in the Soviet Union that became world focused on Walter Cronkite, big thing. And there's this deal made between Israel, Spain, and America with the Soviet Union to get some Jews out of the Soviet Union. Only a couple 100,000 were able to leave in the late 70s. I was lucky enough to be a part of that. The way you would do that is, there was an organization called HIAS that deserves a lot of credit. And you'd go to Austria, then Italy, then you would go anywhere. Many went to America, some went to Australia, some went to Germany. While we were in Italy, we got a letter in the mail that Jack passed away. This was the person that was gonna kind of look out for us when we came to America with nothing. When we get to America, it would have been very easy for Jack's kids, who were in their 50s at this time, very well off, because Jack did very well for himself coming to America and did the American dream in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s.
Construction business?
Construction business, predominantly. It would have been very easy for them to look the other way of their lost relatives from the Soviet Union. But Arlene, especially, was incredibly gracious to my father, got him his first car. And one of the things that Jack owned in his real estate empire was a small liquor store in Clark. So the organization that got us to America kind of put us up as refugees in a studio apartment in Queens. And my dad did a bunch of side jobs the first 6 months, but the break of him being a stock boy in that liquor store that Jack once owned, that now Bob was really running. He was the older son, so he was kind of like the main guy, but Arlene was a very feisty, prominent sister. And so they really co-owned that empire, or whatever they inherited from Jack, and they were doing their own separate things. And that is where my father's American dream was hatched, from $2 an hour being a stock boy to eventually being the manager of that store, to eventually saving up money and buying a piece of that store from Bob.
All in 5 years.
Which is remarkable if you think about it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of times people are like, "Gary, you would have never been here if it wasn't for your dad." I'm like, true, but my dad would have never, if that's true, then my dad would have never been here if it wasn't for Arlene and Bob. And if that was true, then Arlene and Bob would have never been in that position without Jack. And if that was true, and so, I think we all as human beings, self-made is a very funny thing, because it's unbelievably true, but it's also very contextual. It's like lucky. Lucky is very weaponized by those who do not want to do. But even though luck is very much timing, serendipity is very much part of anyone's story that builds something, it is clearly just one small ingredient of the outcome. And so Bob and Arlene were incredibly important to my parents and helped in many different ways. My name is Gennady. That's my actual name. Arlene literally named me by telling my parents, name him Gary. And so, I think very proud of Bob. Unfortunately passed away many years ago, when I was just starting my career at my dad's liquor store in my 20s, and Arlene is still kicking, and I hope her family shares this clip with her.